When remembering the famous explorers of old, we mostly remember great men, such as Diaz, who rounded the Cape of Good Hope, Vespucci, who sailed to the Americas, Balboa, who crossed Central America to the Pacific, Magellan, who sailed around the globe, and Columbus, who sailed from Portugal to the Caribbean. But can you name any famous female explorers? Isabella Bird was one such explorer. She was the most famous female explorer of them all. Born in 1831, Isabella lived during the Victorian era. Being a woman in that time meant that one was expected to stay in the home, raise the children, and be a quiet wife. In addition to the expectations of her culture, Isabella was also a very sickly child. But she rose above the odds and the obstacles to become the most famous female explorer. As she intrepidly traveled and explored, she overcame her pain and responded to the call of God on her life to relieve the pain of others. Her life had been so full that near its end she once penned in her journal, "No man now ever says of any difficult thing that I could not do it." Surely she was the greatest woman among many great men. And now welcome Isabella Bird.
Good morning.
Isabella, please tell us more about your extraordinary life.
As a small child, I had many inexplicably and mysterious ailments and pains. My complaints included spine problems, lethargy, and weakness. Multiple visits to several doctors failed to identify the source of my miseries. One day, a baffled doctor suggested that I should take in some fresh air. So my father, who was an Anglican clergyman, began to allow me to escort him when he went on his daily horseback rides through our church's parish. As we rode, Father would question me about the plants and animals we passed along the way. We named and described everything we saw. I bloomed beautifully. In my early 20s, however, doctors discovered a tumor growing on my spine. Hastily, an operation was prescribed. But in the end, it was not entirely successful. I would always have to live with some measure of pain. Grasping for more answers, another doctor recommended a change of air, this time a sea voyage. My saintly father came to my rescue again. This time, he gave me 100 pounds, which is about $132 in the United States currency, to fund my first travels to North America. The letters I wrote back home to my sister while I wandered became the source material which I used for my first book. As I traveled, I learned to be the master of my ailments and pains. Indeed, I avidly traveled to many exciting and exotic regions of the world where I became burdened by the needs of the people who lived in these remote places. In 1872, I spent 6 months in Hawaii, then called the Sandwich Islands, where I learned to ride astride up the side of a treacherous volcano. Then I traveled from San Francisco alone to Lake Tahoe through the Rocky Mountains to Colorado. There I clambered up the 14,000 feet long peak like a drunk mountain goat with my trail guide, Rocky Mountain Jim, who was a notorious outlaw. It was an arduous trek. That night I wrote in my journal, "I had various falls, and once hung by my frock, which caught in a rock, and Jim severed it with his hunting knife, upon which I fell into a crevice of soft snow. Visiting Japan, I enjoyed the company of the non-Japanese indigenous tribe called the Ainu, who lived in Hokkaido. After the death of my beloved husband, John Bishop, who left me very wealthy, I founded the John Bishop Memorial Hospital in Srinagar, in Kashmir, India. I also founded the Henrietta Bird Hospital for Women in the Punjab region of India. Throughout China and Korea, I established several more hospitals and orphanages. Surprisingly, I was not always welcomed with open arms in every place I traveled. While in China, I was accused of being a foreign devil, and the angry mob brazenly tried to burn down my house in Tibet. In Tibet, I was beaten and left unconscious. Nevertheless, I could not deny the call the Lord had given me to meet the needs of the people I met. In 1901, I daringly set out on my final adventure to Morocco, North Africa. I was 70 years old. As I rode 500 miles astride a spirited black stallion through the Atlas Mountains, my health began to fail. Reluctantly, I decided to return to England, where I could peacefully recuperate, but life would never be the same. I died on October 7, 1904, at my home in Edinburgh, Scotland. Being named the first female fellow of the Royal Geographical Society, the New York Times hailed me as one of the most daring women travelers who ever lived. My full and adventuresome life of 70 years had come to a peaceful close.
Wow, Isabella. You had a myriad of obstacles to overcome as a child because of the illness and pains you experienced. You learned to be the master of those ailments when you resolutely traversed the continents to many exciting and exotic regions. By the time you returned from your final voyage, you were wrapping up 34 years of travel, exploration, and compassionate humanitarian aid. We can see that making yourself at home in any region was indeed your most significant accomplishment because it gave you the unique ability to accurately identify and meet the needs of the people you met. Because of these things, you became known as the most daring female explorer who ever lived. Truly, it can be said of you that there was nothing which Isabella could not do. She did it all.
And cut.